Welcome to another special episode of the Serious TV Drama Podcast. I'm Scott, and joining me this week, our first returning co-host to the countdown, it's Cort. Hey, Cort.
Hey, Scott.
And if you hear any weird noises in the background right now, there's a whole bunch of things going on here in my apartment. So my apologies. This has nothing to do with bad connections and bad audio. It's the little fan in my computer, which this computer's like 8 years plus old. It sometimes just goes off. It's happened a couple times while I was recording with Brian as of late. It's happening again.
Just call it a symphony of sound and enjoy the ambiance.
Oh yeah, because you got that. It sounds like sounds like someone's revving up a motorcycle. It's raining here, so there's the pitter patter of rain on the air conditioner.
We're gonna put them to sleep.
Yeah, well, don't worry. It's New York. There's bound to be some ambulances and police sirens going by, and dude is due to make an appearance if he hasn't finished licking up my blood from the way he injured me earlier this week. So
I forgot to turn Alexa off, so she may interject.
There you go. That'll be awesome. Okay. Alexa, save me from this podcast. Anyway, Cort, obviously you are here, and we may be feeling a slight sense of deja vu, because a little more than 4 years ago, we partnered up for a 2-part podcast where we said goodbye to The Good Wife.
Yeah, we did. We had to make it a 2-parter because we were talking so much, right?
Well, you know what? If we were just covering those 1 or 2 episodes, because I think we kind of did like the penultimate episode and the last episode or something like that. I don't remember. It's been a while and I'm getting old. But we kind of really made it about the show overall. Yeah. So if we had to do 2 podcasts to cover basically 7 seasons worth of a TV show, at least that's the way I'm going to rationalize it, hey, that's fine.
For sure.
We'll see how long this one ends up being. We've got a streak of them being all finishing in the 90-minute category. We're going to see if we can maintain that or not. I got a bad feeling about it, but No, I'll be fine. It's tomorrow night's when I'll be recording one that's going to go on forever, supposedly. So, but to get to this podcast tonight, we are up to number 15 on the greatest TV drama episodes of all time. So yes, we will once again be talking about The Good Wife, and we are going to be zeroing in on an episode from season 5. And the selection is not the episode some of you Good Wife fans might have thought we would have picked. By the way, we didn't pick it. Though I'm sure we will be discussing that episode a bit later in the podcast.
You gotta.
How can you not? It's actually the 5th episode of that season, which was titled Hitting the Fan. That's the one that makes the list of the greatest TV drama, blah, 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 blah. But speaking of blah, 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 let me get my little disclaimer out of the way here right now. As I was just saying, I would never refer to this list or this countdown as things that I or my co-host picked. It's not the way it was done. I did a little bit of research. Actually, I did a lot of bit of research. Articles, websites, etc., different lists, ranking sites over the last, all culled together from the last 8 to 10 years, I would say. And put the information together, figured out which episodes were the highest ranking for different shows, removed ones that had already been covered on the podcast. Bang, bang, boom, came up with the list for the top 20. So that's why there are certain episodes will not be on the list because podcasts already covered them, and why certain things made it. Like, I can't believe that made it. Well, neither did I. Anyway, so there's a disclaimer. See? Really fast. I'm trying.
You got it down pat. It's good.
Yeah. Maybe one day I'll actually write the goddamn thing down. Mr. supposedly scripts things, and I've yet to ever write any of that shit down to say on the podcast.
Next, transcribe it. Like, record it as you're speaking and let whoever, be writing.
Right.
Like Siri, Alexa, whoever.
Yeah, that would be cool. The computer's really revving up right now. Because I think the computer's excited because now is the part where we get into the history of the show. Anyway, Anyway, it's just a teensy-weensy bit of the history of The Good Wife, because I suspect we covered some of this 4 years ago, but I don't really remember, but who knows?
Yeah.
So I'd like to say I'll try to keep this super brief, but look, it's a legal show. I said brief. Anyway. So, The Good Wife. That's what we're here to talk about. The Good Wife ran on CBS from 2009 to 2016, and it racked up a very impressive total of 156 episodes. That was a series that, while it had some, I would say, standard legal procedural elements, which you saw on a number of shows that preceded it, like LA Law, The Practice, or, Boston Legal. You can even say Law and Order for that matter. What really made it stand out ahead of those shows was their excellent use of serialized storylines. When you'd have season-long arcs as well as story threads that really wove their way through several seasons. So, The Good Wife, being a legal drama, that's usually the most common way to refer to it. You could also say it was a political drama, because that played a significant part on the series. But I think you and I would agree, I think most importantly, it was a relationship drama. I mean, that's really what the show came down to.
Yeah.
Because, sure, absolutely, we may recall a number of the cases, and that's actually one of the reasons I think it's better than most procedural shows. You were always interested in the cases on the show as well. Some procedural shows, you'd be like, I don't care about this. Can we get to the other stuff, please? But the reason most of us watched the show week after week were the relationships between our main character, Alicia Florrick, and her husband, her friends, her colleagues, her on-again, off-again lovers, and as well as all the sharp and clever interactions and relationships between so many of the supporting players who I would say I can make a winning wager. A number of viewers probably liked a lot more than even Alicia. Because, just like on sitcoms, oftentimes the most popular, compelling character on the drama is not necessarily the main character.
Yes, correct.
Now, the duo behind The Good Wife was actually a husband and wife team of Robert and Michelle King. Now, they had actually taken a stab at a TV legal drama a couple years earlier, a very short-lived show called Injustice that aired several episodes on ABC. But The Good Wife, clearly, that was their bedrock, their big success. They had always wanted to do a TV series that would focus on the wife involved in a highly publicized sex scandal. Think of things that happened with, the Clintons.
Yeah.
John Edwards was another big one back in the early aughts, whatever. And coincidentally, real life-wise, both of those scandals, the wife was also actually a lawyer at one time. So their idea was, what if the wife, instead of just simply, standing by her man, went on to try to live her own life beyond the critically damaged marriage and went back into practicing law? And obviously I just mentioned the Clintons and John Edwards, especially being in New York here. I would be remiss if I left out the biggest obvious real life inspiration, which had to be Elliot Spitzer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who was, at the time, a New York governor who was brought down by a sex scandal, having to resign his office. Obviously that premise is mirrored in the very beginning of The Good Wife, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Back to the Kings, just to wrap up their storyline, so to speak. Just to give a little postscript, they actually created a very weird, but amusing political comedy drama. I don't know what, it was a million genres all mashed up into one. I'm sure you watched it as well. It aired in the summer and early fall of 2016, and it was called Brain Dead. Did you watch that show, Cort?
Not all of it. It was an interesting little show.
Well, it's an interesting show, and again, I will not head down any sort of political rabbit hole on the podcast. One can just assume our political affiliations and leave it at that. But good Lord, you should go back and watch that and realize when they did that show is like Nostradamus.
Oh, God.
It's so prescient, more than any of us realized at the time. It's bizarre. Especially when you talk about how, maybe we attribute some supporters of certain figures as being almost as though they're in a cult or brainwashed or not, or whatever. Oh my God. Yeah. So anyway, we didn't realize at the time, we thought it was fun. Now it's kind of like, ooh. Also, hey, it's got Mary Elizabeth Winstead and Tony Shalhoub. Those are two good reasons to go back and check it out as well.
Oh, definitely. Okay.
And finally, after that, and after The Good Wife, the couple, then got together with this other fellow, Phil Arden Robinson. I know him from another TV show, producer-wise. I just can't think of it off the top of my head. And they went on to be the showrunners of the critically acclaimed spin-off series that ended up on CBS All Access, became like the first crown jewel of that,
yes.
wannabe streaming service. Actually,
hey.
Well, it's got a ways to go. Oh, excuse me. Is it now Paramount Plus?
Not yet.
Not yet. Whatever. Because networks or streaming services that put Paramount in their title always do really well. Said no one. The Good Fight, where the focus ended up shifting over to the wonderful Christine Baranski's Diane Lockhart character. Now that I have CBS All Access for the past 2 weeks, let's just say there's a very good chance we'll be talking a little bit about The Good Fight, after we get done talking about The Good Wife, because I got a couple things to say about that show. And
okay.
Cort, I know you're a fan of it, and I'm not saying I'm not a fan. I'm just saying I have some things to say about it.
Okay. You may be shocked at what I say when we talk about it.
Oh.
If we're comparing.
you may be more shocked at what I have to say.
Oh, okay.
especially if you rewind back what I just said just a minute or two ago.
If we're on the same page, I'm like,
that would be amazing. It's like, then this podcast will end in a proposal. Anyway, they are also the creators and producers of the CBS TV series Evil, which I do plan to watch at some point in the distant future. I've always wanted to check it out.
Very interesting show. It's creepy as hell.
It's got certain actors on it that I'm appreciative of.
Yes.
I want to check it out. But, of course, we're here to talk about The Good Wife and that the episode Hitting the Fan, but we need to get to that fifth season. A very memorable fifth season. So
oh my God.
we like to, 'cause usually when we do these things, although there will be exceptions in this countdown, the next one's actually probably going to be one of those exceptions. Quite often, if we're talking about shows that have a serialized storyline, to repeat that phrase. So I like to set the stage for where we are, so where we are in the continuum, so to speak. The fifth season. Wow. But pretty much by the end of the previous season, when you were doing the rewatch, because I know you rewatched a bunch of episodes, did you go back to the fourth season, or did you just start right off with the fifth season?
I started at the first season, but I wasn't going to catch up in time, so I just started with the fifth one. But they always do a good job of recapping what happened before.
They do. I think I made the not so strange decision. I knew I was going to try to watch the entire fifth season, so I decided to watch the last episode of the fourth season, the entire fifth season, and the first episode of the sixth season, and then skip to the finale to see if my opinion. Because I don't remember what I said about the finale when we did the podcast.
I remember I was talking about Jason, you told me to stop it.
So I just watched it, and I don't know what my opinion was a few years ago, but I know what my opinion is of it right now.
Ooh.
Hey, well, we'll get to that just before we get to The Good Fight. All the fun stuff's gonna be at the end of the podcast. No one likes listening to us rave about stuff, but Scott's gonna rip something apart. Anyway. It's not like it's Gotham or anything. It won't be that bad. Anyway. No, I was just asking because it was interesting watching the last episode of the fourth season, especially after what's been going on in the real world for the last several weeks, because it was all about voting fraud and ballots and not counting ballots and whatever. And I was going, oh, this is really weird right now.
I was like, but she won. But, okay, no, we're going to get to that.
I'm not. It's funny because this is the end of the fourth season, and that was for him. I know it comes up later for her later on. Yeah. But that becomes part of the, I don't really care that much about it seasons. Hence me skipping those. Because the fifth season, we were just talking about this briefly before the podcast, and it doesn't matter when we say it. I'll say it right now. Over the years on the podcast, and as well as just, on random threads online, even before that, people often get into conversations about, the best seasons of TV for different shows. And there's a few that are always in the conversation. I know one that you and Susan and Kelly, your compadres from the Geek Girl Soup podcast would pick. And I would agree that definitely is in quote unquote the conversation. Just say it. You know which one. You know what I'm talking about.
I absolutely know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's the Leftover season 2. Come on, you were supposed to say it.
Okay. Clearly, it's Leftover season 2. What are you talking about?
Yeah, of course, absolutely.
There are shining moments in all the other seasons.
Well, I don't know about season 1, but anyway.
No, we're not going to talk about Leftovers right now. We'll talk about these after.
I know. I'll wait till later in the countdown to rip apart that show, if it should show up on the countdown at all. Who knows?
Hey,
who knows?
If it is, you will go back and watch the entire series.
Oh my God.
My opinion changed of season 1 when I did a rewatch.
Oh my God, 10 hours of unbelievable pretentiousness? No, thank you.
Anyway. Is different from watching week to week. You know that.
You're right, because if I'm watching it on a service, I can skip the most obnoxious opening credit sequence of any TV show ever for season 1. I like the season. Anyway.
I'm telling Kelly, but go ahead.
Oh no, Kelly's opinions on stuff. Oh, what you gonna do? Write another book for a description of a podcast? I don't know which is longer, an STVD podcast or Kelly's descriptions of a Geek Girl Soup podcast. Oh, she doesn't watch. Does she watch The Good Wife? Is she gonna listen to this? Susan might go.
Listen to this at exactly what time?
Oh, come on! It's all in good fun.
Always.
Well, Anyway, but circling back to the point was the Leftover season 2 is one of those things. Season 4 of The Wire is in that conversation, and there's a few other ones. I would posit that season 5 of The Good Wife belongs in that conversation. And having just watched the entire goddamn season over the last, and I watched it, I was amazed by how fast I got through 22 episodes. Which kind of tells you something. Wow. It's a
great season.
And I know. Oh, and when certain things happen during that season, oh my God. I remember this is the first time I've ever watched the show, at least this season, I should say. I just remembered I was introduced to The Good Wife via binging. Because I was watching them all. I was like, these were the days where oh God, I got to buy a season on iTunes to watch or something like. That's how long ago.
I thought you were going to say the Netflix DVDs.
No, I think I had to do that after it. And I was getting impatient. I was like, I'll just buy the damn thing so I can just watch one after the other. I can't, how many discs am I getting? But I'd never binged, the 5th season because that was when I was watching on a weekly basis. Oh, I don't know how emotionally sensitive a person you are, but for me, watching that 5th season as a binge, something that I know would affect me no matter what, really affected me. Like, wow. Like, kicked my guts out, and I was like, I couldn't stop crying.
Yeah.
It was an ugly cry. It was like Homeland Carrie cry. It was a really bad cry. Ooh. Oh,
yeah, that was.
Actually, Juliana Margulies is not a pretty crier either. No offense to her.
But it makes you feel it, so it's good.
That is true, and I'm not mocking her the way I would, Carry On Homeland. Anyway, 5th season. So by the end of the previous one, Alicia had agreed. At the very end, we realized Alicia is about to agree to join Carrie in forming a new law firm. They're also planning to, take the 4th year associates at Lockheed. Wow.
That's a different show.
Yeah. What would the show be like if it was set in an airplane hangar? They were planning to take the 4th year associates, poaching clients, etc. Because the associates were all upset, just a few months earlier when the firm's partners had decided to delay any and all offers for partnership and promotions and so on for another year. Hence why all the 4th years were already willing and able to jump ship. So that's what's going on in the 5th season. Suspicions are being raised, particularly by the Weasley I don't know if I'll say lovably. delightfully Weasley partner David Lee, who then starts to investigate the associates.
Oh, David Lee.
So that's really the main story thread that's pushing through the first 4 seasons of the episode. You also have, Peter Florrick has just been reelected governor. Diane Lockhart is being considered for a possible state Supreme Court nomination. Let's be clear on that one.
I mean, it was pretty much a lock. And then...
pretty much. It was a done deal, except,
Oops.
Oopsie. What, you didn't see that coming if you were going to do this? You think he would just say, anyway, that's later. And actually, it is Diane's suspicion of Alicia that does lead to everything hitting the fan. So, actually, like than my computer. Anyway. So this episode, it was actually written by Robert and Michelle King. And, that's usually a thing on TV. If the people, the actual creators are writing the episode, more often than not, that tells you, oh, this is a significant one.
Yeah.
If Damon Lindelof is the writer behind an episode of Lost or Your Leftovers or Watchmen or whatever, you're like, oh, it's probably going to be a significant one. Or Joss Whedon on a Buffy, oh, it's a significant one. Same thing. Oh, Matthew Weiner, oh, it's a significant one. And every once in a while it might suck. No, I'm just kidding. So, the director, though, I don't know why I want to mention this, but I'm going to. It's directed by this fellow James Whitmore Jr. I know who this guy is because once I saw his picture, he's this guy who's mainly a TV actor. He showed up in a number of classic TV shows. You could find him on shows showing up, and more than once, quite often, on the Rockford Files, on Magnum PI, on Quantum Leap, all these shows. And then he went on to become a very prolific TV director. And he directed a number of things, including, the aforementioned Quantum Leap. He also directed some episodes of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, actually.
Nice.
And several Good Wife episodes. And and for people who really know their Hollywood history here, if you're hearing the name James Whitmore Jr., yes, he's the son of actor who you might remember for certain things, James Whitmore. If you don't know who James Whitmore is, just go look him up on IMDb. I don't have time to tell you who he is. Whatever. If I'm not mistaken, I think he's the old fellow who ends up killing himself in Shawshank, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's who James Whitmore is. If I'm wrong, I apologize, but I'm just putting that out of my ass right now.
Say it with confidence, Scott.
Yeah. I'm just pulling that out of my ass right now.
Okay.
Suddenly I'm powdered toast, man. Well, there's a reference I've never made. Okay. So this episode, Cort. Am I correct in assuming, like myself, is this the first time you've watched this episode since it aired way back when, or did you ever do any minor rewatches or what?
I have not done any minor rewatches for this show, which is amazing because of how much we loved it. I feel like because I picked up The Good Fight when it came on, like that was my continuation of watching like this universe.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it'd be like watching. I would say it's like watching Frasier after Cheers, although there are some who would make a case for Frasier being better than Cheers. I'm not saying I'm one of those people, and I wouldn't make that case with this show either. But yeah, it's definitely a continuing. I love the fact that we now can use the phrase "the Good Wife universe." By the way,
yes.
Now it's legitimate. You can say that because of this other show. This is the one that always stuck in my head. Is like, oh, well, the first thing you always remember is, oh, this is the one where Will just knocks all the shit off her desk.
Yes. And I had forgotten that he did that until like he was talking to Diane, and I was like, "Oh crap! No, he's going to her office." And I couldn't remember if he turned the desk over completely. I just remember it was real tense, and I sat on the edge of my seat watching that whole scene because I had forgotten all of it.
I would say if the episode can have any, if it's possible for that episode to have any iconic moments, that's the one. Him knocking every. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I think there's a GIF of it. So I'm pretty sure
there needs to be.
I am almost positive there is. I am.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the fact that there's enough wacky noises going on in this house right now, you'd hear me tip tapping on the keyboard here and looking it up. I'm positive. You know what? There is. You know how I know there is? Because when I was looking for an image to use to illustrate the podcast, I kind of was thinking about trying to find a shot of that. And all the shots were just they just weren't framed right or a little blurry, whatever. But a number of them I saw had the little where there's a GIF in the corner. I was like, oh, it's a GIF.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
That is funny. But like in that moment, like remember we were talking about how this episode is just at higher energy for the entire rest of the show? Mm-hmm. That's where it starts. Like it ratchets up to 10 and it doesn't let us go until it's over.
Oh, it's a beautiful little build in the very beginning. And one of the things that they did this season, a number of times, to either be for great suspense effect or emotional effect, they would end on a line of dialogue or a moment or a look and pick it up in the very next episode. They might even in fact, what they did a number of times I noticed, they would replay that moment, but they would also take different camera angles on it. So it wouldn't be just showing it to us exactly the same way again. It would be from a slightly different perspective for some of the shots. I noticed them doing that throughout the whole season, which I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. I'm assuming they just took, they had extra shots and they just did that to make it look different. Because the end of the previous episode is Diane going to tell, and I think the words are, she says that, Alicia's leaving with Carrie or something like that, or Carrie leaving the firm, whatever. And it picks right up from there, and then he marches off to her office, and then we're waiting for it. And she doesn't, and I love what, does he say something basically like, you're leaving? No,
he says, so you're leaving, and she tries to play it off at first, and then they dive right into it. Like, I love that he went and he asked her.
It's just.
I mean, they broke my heart this episode, but I felt really good because I was like, okay, they're kind of rebooting the show because how shows have their seasons where things aren't as interesting. So okay, they're rebooting the show. It's gonna have all this energy, and now they're gonna have this whole Mr. and Mrs. Smith energy. They're gonna be going up against each other in court. It's gonna be awesome, and then there's still gonna be Endgame. I can't wait. And then, they hurt my feelings, Scott.
Yeah, I know. But we're not talking about that episode yet.
They kind of gave me what I wanted in the finale, even though it wasn't real.
Oh, good Lord.
I mean, I was satisfied with that. I can't remember, like we were talking about, I can't remember if I was happy with how the show ended initially. But watching this again, sure.
Well, perhaps I'm a bit more a harsher critic than you. I don't know. But we will talk about that a little bit later on. Very little, because again, that I know was covered on this podcast. So I really
we did.
Yeah, that we recorded 2 weeks in a row for it. Yeah. Anyway, so like you said, you have this great scene between them in her office where it just basically we know it's not even a ticking bomb at this point. It's a grenade that's been thrown into her office, and we're just waiting for it to go off any second now, and we're waiting for it, and then I did not mean to hit the microphone like that. I think I have a blood.
You hit the fan, Scott.
I think I have a blood clot now. Everything's going wrong this week. And yes, right. From that point on, it's the episode continues to escalate. It's like a roller coaster that's got more drops in it than your average roller coaster. And I was joking with you before the podcast, and I'll just say it now because it's funny enough to repeat. I noticed that there was this running theme throughout this season. I don't know if it was used in previous seasons. It probably was. I don't know. I didn't rewatch seasons 1 through 4. But that dun 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 dun, where it's like pulse pounding music, they use it at the end of most of the episodes this season. I think they use it throughout this episode.
Oh, for sure.
Because things keep piling on one after the other because, the paranoia has taken over. Now we have to fire everybody. Now who are the fourth year associates who have gone bad? Isn't it like all of them pretty much?
Yeah, like just send them all away.
David Lee's in off with their heads mode, whatever, Diane, who's got like both feet out the door and is still doing all this. And again, Diane do you not see where this is gonna go? Have you not heard about Peter Florrick being just a tiny bit vindictive?
Yeah, but like there's the part where her initial and always loyalty was always with Will, and that was one of the things that I loved about this show. We talked about relationships earlier at the top. Like their relationship was one of the first things that drew me to this show. I mean, besides the whole Will and Lalisha thing, sure, but like their like kinship. Oh my God, I'm gonna cry.
Well, what's great about that is you can have that, as you said, kinship between two characters who are very different, but you don't really think about them being that different. But they're I mean, personality-wise, and you can even imagine background-wise and whatever. You know, Diane Lockhart and Will Gardner, you know, let's just say I don't think they grew up in the same neighborhood. Let's put it that way. No. But there's something about, and that's kind of one of the things I really love about the show, is just the different types of characters you get and how you throw them into the mix and how well they kind of bounce off each other. And sometimes you have some very interesting combinations. And the fact that Will and Diane are so intrinsically connected to each other, and they're so different, yet they're so good together.
Yeah. Scott, did you watch Suits?
Did I watch what?
Suits. It was a USA drama lawyer show.
Suits? No, I've never seen Suits. I'm aware of it, but I never got around to watching it.
I was going to say that their relationship kind of reminded me of Harvey and Jessica, who's Gina Torres.
Yes.
I don't watch it, but okay.
No, I know who Gina Torres is. So. No.
Yeah, I know you know who she is.
Yeah, we talked about a show that she was on already.
Yeah.
Apparently she has to be mentioned on every show we do. No way.
It does.
Oh, she was also on. Oh my God, she was on the. We mentioned her, and you weren't there, but we mentioned her on the Hannibal podcast as well. Actually, we didn't. We just made a reference with the wife because her character didn't really.
She needs to be on all the shows. I mean, it can be like Kelly mentions the leftovers every episode where we're talking about stuff. So.
No.
Well, we do. We all do it. We can't help it.
Oh God.
It's a thing. It's our thing.
Well,
Leave us alone.
It's okay. Hey, I don't mind. It makes me feel less bad about not showing up on you guys' podcast, over the last several years. It's like
and it's done naturally, just because.
No, it's not. People need. It's like the Lost fans who have to make every connection to Lost with every show they ever watch. Like, you know what? Take it down a few notches. You're embarrassing yourselves, and you're embarrassing me.
Hey.
Breaking Bad's my all-time favorite, show of the 21st century, but I don't need to mention it connected to every goddamn thing I watch, However, I do that with Mad Men. Anyway, so, no, I don't. I'm just making, I like to mock myself. So, yeah, this episode, the pinballing back and forth, and whether it's them, everything from, now they're all stuck. And I love that they operate off of all these alien weird environments, like them being stuck in the coffee house at one point. Or where are they going to go? It's like, because we've seen the show can have these, rapid moving, escalating things, but it's usually about, we've got to go from courtroom to courtroom. I mean, there was one episode I watched, I guess actually you probably watched it as well, because I think it's in the 5th season, the one with the immigration storyline, where a big running joke in the show is like, we're in the wrong courtroom. We have to keep going to this one. No, we have to go to this place. No, we have to go to this place. And it's like, I keep imagining, wow, no wonder they're all so thin. They're running all over the place, This one, they're going, they're looking for a place to even have to set up. They don't have an office anymore, So it's just, it's just so much fun to watch, all this going on, and it's all strategy. It's like a high-speed chess game that's going on in this episode. It's really so much fun to watch.
Oh, for sure.
Because, and not only do you have all that going on, because if the plot of the episode was just solely, they fire Alicia because they find out she's about to leave and take their clients or whatever. I mean, a lot of shows would just focus on that and, stuff falling apart. Maybe then you see them firing everyone else, but it would be they decided to take it to an upper notch. And then it was then they throw in the whole chum hum thing. Which just becomes this insane thing of everyone running to go have a meeting with, this guy, he's like the Mark Zuckerberg type character, I guess. I don't know who else to compare him to. And they keep getting, oh, by the way, I'd like to find out how much the guy who gets paid to serve subpoenas on the show, because he's gotten so much work on the show. Did you notice that? I don't know. Yeah. I want to look up that actor. How many times has he appeared on this show? Like 20 times? Because they're constantly serving each other subpoenas, whatever. It's just, it's so intense also. And and you were talking about, this was this season and this episode is a game changer. This is a huge game changer.
Yeah.
Because, I've talked about certain shows, and there's a trope, and you know what? It's not a trope. I'm not going to call it a trope. Trope is an overused phrase, and I'm guilty of that more than as much as anybody. So sometimes I've mentioned this on the podcast before, so I'm going to mention it now. And what makes it very unique for what they did on The Good Wife. Some of the greatest TV series have a setup where you have these two characters who may be who are aligned together in some form at the beginning, and eventually, whether it's 3 seasons or 10 seasons or wherever the heck it's going to be, they're eventually going to be in opposition to each other.
Oh, you went the other way.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. I don't know what you're
face
talking
off.
About.
Yeah.
So whether it be pick a show. The American sets up, so who's against each other when you get to the final season, for most of that season, the husband and wife, they're opposing each other for, and working against each other for a while there. Breaking Bad, it's Walt and Jesse going up. It's not Walt and Hank, it's Walt and Jesse that are going up against one another, and so on and so forth. The Shield, it's Vic and Shane going up against one another. You start to see it. It's like, oh yeah. Hey, you're onto something there, Scott. Yeah, because I'm smart. Just fuck
yes,
up.
You are.
So they decided to do it here. They didn't wait till the last season. They decided, no, we're going to do it the 5th season. Because all of a sudden, oh my God, you're going to have Alicia and Will oppose each other, hate each other? How is that going to work?
But the hate sex was going to be amazing if he paid. Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I was so disappointed. Well, not even disappointed. I told you they broke my heart.
I'm about to say, I would say you were disappointed in that movie because it was a piece of crap. No, just anyway.
Yeah, it was what it was going to be. I got what I wanted out of that movie.
2 very pretty people and guns. That's basically what you got, which is pretty much what you should have been expecting. Hey, look how pretty they are. Oh, look at the guns. There you go. I'm gonna pause to drink some water, so you can talk for 30 seconds, Cort. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, I can talk for 30 seconds. All right.
Oh, so, by the way, I please do the. At some point, you got to do the. Nah, I'm not gonna say it. You know where I'm gonna go with that. You know what I was gonna say, don't you? And the only reason I just stopped, I realized I'm about to mispronounce that woman's name, and that's gonna make me look even worse. I'm gonna shut up and let Cort talk.
All right, and so as much as we talked about the high energy so far, I like that there were some quieter beats, like when Grace was calling her mom's phone. Like, Will took a step back from being how angry he was to actually talk to her for a minute. Yes, he did kind of interrogate her a little bit, like if she knew where her mom was or wherever. But like, and then he went ahead and passed that message along. Like, they took a moment to step away from being enemies in that second to, hey, Grace called, you should call the school, you need to go give permission. And that's what gave me that whole vibe, like, oh, this is where we're going. They're going to face off in court during the daytime, and then later it's just going to be all hate sex. And I was on board.
Oh, I never thought that was going
to be. But then she ended up with Peter, briefly. So I don't know how you feel about the evolution of our girl, Alicia Florrick. I love how strong she became. Like, this character is completely different from who she was in the first season. Mm-hmm. On one hand, I like that she was strong enough to stand up to Will and to take the actions that she did. And like, when he started calling her out on things after they did this, like, she didn't just back down. Like, when they had the whole restraining order, the old Alicia would have just folded and, went ahead with whatever else they were doing. But like this Alicia, she's like, no, we're going to what's that judge's name who hates Will? Let's do this. So I on one hand, I enjoyed that she was that strong. On the other hand, I hate that she became so much like Peter. And I was reading this article that was it was an interview with one of the kings right before the good fight came up, and he was talking about how Alicia eventually became or she began to resemble the things that she hated in Peter as the show wore on, and that was intentional. And when we talk about how the show ended, we'll talk about how that ended and why they did it that way. That he said in the interview.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I never thought about the idea of her becoming like Peter.
Oh, I couldn't. At the end, I couldn't stand Alicia.
We're talking about the. Well, yeah. Once we get for me with Alicia again, not to jump out of this episode, but why not? Because who cares?
Well, right now, even though I'm happy she was this strong, I hate that she did this. I'm not. I'm on Will's side. You see, you're on the other side. That's fine.
No, I never really thought about taking a side because...
Oh, I took a side. I hate that they did this.
I understood...
But I like what it did for the show.
I understood why she was doing what she was doing.
But it was so shady, Scott. And, that's not who I loved. I don't like that she became shady like Peter.
Oh. Excuse me. You're not, obviously, you're obviously not wrong about the shadiness of Peter.
Yeah.
Well,
not
Will,
exactly.
But I'm sorry. Will's not exactly a saint either.
True.
Especially when it comes to legal business matters. He's kind of shady too.
He is, but I feel like she betrayed a trust that I never wanted her to betray. If she wanted to leave the firm, cool. I was on board with her starting her own firm with Carrie, but the way they did it, I hated it.
Yeah.
If it had with her and Luca, I like that.
If it hadn't, but here's the thing. See, I gotta play devil's advocate. But if it hadn't been for the insistence of the fourth year associates staying in order to get so they didn't walk out on their bonuses, they would have left 3 weeks earlier. They wouldn't have stuck around for 3 weeks. So if it was solely, Jesus, weird noises. If it was just Carrie and Alicia, and they actually did that for these people. They weren't sticking out for bonuses for themselves. It was for these people. So that's it. So she got put.
They were stealing client files. They were being shady, Scott.
Being someone who's gone from company to company, if you're going to stay in the same industry, I wouldn't call it stealing, but I would probably give people the heads up. Oh, I'm going blah blah blah.
Yeah,
you do that. Of course you do. It's naive to be otherwise.
Oh, I'm so nice. I would not be able to survive in a law firm.
Oh, they would. Plus, and any of these people would have done the same damn thing.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, we actually saw some of these people doing the same damn thing later on. Diane.
Yeah, because Diane leaves eventually, which she should have, because they were. I can't say what I want to say because you like this podcast PG.
No, I don't.
But yeah,
you could fuckity fuck. Say whatever you want, Cort. We curse on this podcast, and it's not like you're wussy.
Okay.
Not like the wussy one you're on. Come on.
On that one, I just thought you like to keep it PG for some reason.
No,
but okay. David Lee and the way they kicked out Diane, I hated all of them. Ugh, assholes.
I think my cat meowed while you were cursing. And you didn't even curse. And by the way, that's how. Not that we were debating, because I was never saying you were wrong anyway. But if I wanted to go there, I'd say, hey, you know how you know you're wrong? Because you're on the side of David Lee. That's how you know you're wrong.
I'm not on David Lee's side. I am on Will.
Will
and Diane.
It's like when you look over and you see who your allies are. It's like, oh wait, that person's on my side. That can't be good. If David Duke's one of your supporters, it probably means you're a racist.
Oh my God! Yes, that is accurate.
Shut up, dude. Cat's meowing. He's just staring at the water and meowing at it like it's gonna talk back to him. So yeah, and I think I think the reason why this episode is so highly regarded is because even though we know from the beginning of the season that this is coming, that they're going to leave.
Yeah.
But the way it's handled, it's beyond disruption. It is literally, we're just going to blow it up now and see what happens. So the guts of doing that and how it all falls out, I think all of that, and then, it's the intensity of the episode. Of course, it's the performances, and it is those little quiet moments. I love that moment when Grace calls. I love that because it was everything you said. The other thing that actually occurred to me in the moment was, even though at this point in the season and what's going on here isn't about politics, except for what happens to Diane.
Yeah.
Although it's office politics, actually. I mean, so let me amend that as I'm saying it out loud. There's always, there's been, up until the last few years at least, previous to the last few years, there's kind of an unwritten rule in politics. You leave the children alone. You don't mess with them. You're always nice about them. So Grace, because if that had been like her brother calling, maybe he wouldn't have been as, even though he does interact with her brother later on that season. And that's how he finds out. I always loved the brother, by the way. Owen, great character.
Oh yeah.
I always thought he was, for some reason, I thought he was related to John Ritter. I don't know why.
It do have a resemblance.
Yeah, that must be it. Love that character. But I think it's because this was the major crossroads game changer of the show.
We thought.
Well, no, I still say it is. I know what you're talking about. We're going to get there. But that doesn't happen without this episode.
True. So, and I feel like they knew what was coming, and so they felt safe building this up. Like, we had no idea, but they knew they had to start planning.
We're going to talk about all that later. But so that is why when you do the deep dive research that yours truly did, this episode actually is rated and ranked higher. And I don't mean just on IMDb. I mean by several lists. The lists that actually did have The Good Wife on them, because some of them didn't have it, I will admit. Yeah. But other ones had it fairly high. This was the episode they had. They referenced the. I love that we keep talking about the other one without mentioning it.
Everybody knows who watched it. So.
Yeah, if you're listening to this podcast, you watched the show. You know the one we're talking about. We're going to talk about it. But it's not the one.
And I understand why. This had way better energy and the story.
Yeah.
The other one was just a shock.
I have a whole spiel about why, and it's in my head. It's there. I don't, I don't need Mason Verger to come out and say it for me. I can do it myself. Shout out to anyone who listened to the Hannibal podcast, and also apologies to anyone who listened to the Hannibal podcast. So, but it's just, but I think that is why this episode it does get ranked above that one. I mean, it's probably like 1 and 1A, but it's 1. Yeah. And I can remember watching it at the time and going, oh, gee. And it's and I remember getting excited just what you were saying. It's like, oh my God, they're going to be in opposition to each other all the time. That's amazing, because especially on a show that, and we talked about it years ago, and we're going to talk about it tonight as well. One of the most fun things about The Good Wife and its spinoff, The Good Fight, is the revolving, recurring list of opponents, the attorneys that they would oppose in court all the time. Mm-hmm. And now it's like, oh my God, they're actually going to be, they're going to be in their own rogues gallery.
Yeah. And they know each other's playbook.
And then you get into mindset is like, wait, I'm not sure who before we start seeing how the episodes unfold, he's going, wait, who are we supposed to be rooting for? It is her show. So basically she's usually going to be cast in the, we're supposed to be rooting for Alicia, but sometimes you kind of like, oh, but I kind of like Will here, and you kind of go back and forth and back and forth. So good. Great.
Yeah.
But a great episode. It's just, I had mentioned when I watched on the very first episode of the greatest TV drama, blah, 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 when I recorded with your friend Kelly, it wasn't until I started rewatching House, I'd be like, oh, I forgot how much I liked House.
Mm-hmm.
But now when I got to CBS All Access finally a couple of weeks ago, I will admit that I skipped my geekiness, but I put my geekiness on the shelf. Did not go to Star Trek Discovery, did not go to Picard, did not go to the Twilight Zone. I went right to The Good Fight. I watched all 37 episodes of Good Fight. And one thing I'll say about that before I got to The Good Wife, the first thing was like, oh, I like seeing these characters again.
Yes.
I like being in this universe again. And we were just talking about that earlier. I love the fact that now you can say there's just the way there's a Buffy verse or a DC verse or whatever heck other verse, you can now say there's a Good Wife verse. I just love it. That can actually be a thing.
Yes.
But, and this is going to feed into, like I said, we're going to talk a little bit about The Good Fight towards the end of the podcast. But having watched all of those and now switching over to this show, to the original, The Good Wife, and especially watching the 5th season, I was floored by how good this show is. Again, I was like, oh my God, I forgot how really exceptionally good this show can be. Mm-hmm. And, I'm sure there's weak episodes throughout the show. And I think like from the midpoint of the 6th season on, I remember thinking the show started to get weaker for me, if I'm recalling. Once she starts running for state attorney, I think I started not liking it quite as much as before. I think that was where I started to fall off a little bit,
Yeah, and for me, again, it wasn't necessarily not liking the show anymore. It was like me disliking who Alicia was becoming the more she started to resemble Peter.
Oh, no, I mean, I still like the show. And if I misspoke, if that's what I said, it actually is more like what you said. Well, not the Peter part, because, whatever.
Yeah.
I would just say I just started not liking her as much.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't, and the reason why I would not liken it to Peter, unless you want to say it at the very end, and that's only going by something that Eli says, and I don't know if that has anything to do with what's in her head, and I don't have proof otherwise. She doesn't really ever seem to really be all that interested, even when she's suckered into running.
Yeah.
She never seems like she really wants to.
Right.
So she doesn't have the political ambition, which is what Peter is all about. And that's why I wouldn't necessarily look at it that way. But I do understand. I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying that's why it probably wouldn't have occurred to me. Because that's the main lens I view Peter through. Is he's number one about political ambition, and number two, sex.
And I feel like I'm with you on, like, when we have these longer seasons, like around that time when it was the 6th and 7th season, is when a lot of the newer shows that we were watching would come out with sharper, shorter seasons.
Yes.
And I feel like we commented on it, like when we talked, during that double feature, how we wished maybe the season had been shorter and they maybe would have cut out some of the unnecessary episodes.
Mm-hmm. It would just make for a tighter show. I mean,
yeah.
And the Kings and Juliana Margulies herself, but she's the actress and producer, but it's more about people who are creating and writing the show. They would make their snarky comments about the fact that they have to do a 22 episode season, which is obviously more, quote unquote, more difficult than those who are doing a 10 or a 13 episode season, like a lot of the other shows were, back then, and now they're like 8 episode seasons, whatever. They're not wrong, but then the flip of that is like, but now you have more time to tell your story, and you can,
which is what they did, like in season 5. Our favorite season.
Yeah. 5th season's amazing. There's nothing to complain about because it doesn't feel like there's no dead weight in the season. Right. Which is especially impressive for a show that does, that even with all the serialized stuff, also has to rely on a procedural concept for almost every episode. There has to be at least one, case of the week kind of thing going on
Right.
while everything else is going on. And the fact that they are able to weave that in so well and make that as interesting or as compelling as whatever this continuing storyline, I think is what raises The Good Wife above a lot of other shows, that have a similar, idea where, it's serialized, but then it's also procedural. I think they're one of the better ones at it.
I would agree with you on that, because a lot of the shows that do that, they only do it with forgettable characters mostly, and they'll do it just to teach a lesson to the main characters.
Oh yeah. I find that obnoxious.
It is.
That. Look, if there's, it doesn't mean that there might not be the occasional case where there is a moment or something about it which parallels the storyline. And that's fine. That actually can be really excellent writing when they can get away with that. But
it should be a crutch.
Yeah. But not when it's like in your face and like,
Yeah, and it's like every episode. Not here, in other places.
Yeah, they're not trying to teach us a moral at the end of every Good Wife episode. More about how to be immoral.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a fantastic episode, and that was the 5th episode of the season, right? Yeah, 5th episode of the season. So then you get this. So now we can. Here's where we kind of branch off and start talking about certain other things. So now we can find that we've been talking about anyway. So then that sets off this streak of the next. I guess we could say the next 10 episodes.
Yeah.
Let me see if I count that up right. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Yeah, 10 episodes. Yeah. Don't know why I did that voice. I don't even know what that voice meant. So, yeah, over the course of the next 10 episodes, obviously you get the dueling between whether they're in court or vying for, for certain clients or whatever. I love that Nathan Lane comes back and rejoins the show, which I seem to recall was one of the things that bugged me in that final season, that Nathan Lane never showed up again. And that kind of pissed me off. It's like, he should show up.
He was busy. He was doing things.
I don't care. He's in he's in New York. The show films in New York. He could have spared a day. Don't give me that. Anyway. He's not. Anyway. So you get the 10 episodes, and then we get the Dramatics, Your Honor, which is the one that people probably might have thought would have been the one that got picked. So I gotta tell you, and again, we talked about this before we started recording, or maybe I talked about it earlier in the podcast. I don't remember at this point. I had never binged this season before, so when I got up to this episode, and then what happens. For me personally, because I'm, a wuss. Let's see. I think I was crying for the rest of this episode and well into the next episode. It was like, did someone put on Schindler's List and didn't tell me? What the hell's going on here? I can't stop crying.
Yeah.
Oh, it was... I would still say... excuse me. I would still say it's so impressive that it was probably one of the best kept secrets of a major plot change I can remember on a TV show.
Yeah.
Because I don't know anyone who knew about this. I don't remember being hinted at anywhere. We didn't hear about anything going on. I mean, I don't recall, but I don't seem to remember anything going on behind the scenes, like, issues between Josh Charles and the producers, or Josh Charles is leaving to do this other project, or I don't remember hearing anything like that.
No.
So, and no, the computer. Shut up, computer. But wow. And even in the episode itself, you don't know that it's going to go there until just before it happes.
Yeah. And even when it happens, you're like, oh no, he's Maine. He's okay. It's going to work out. And you're like, no. Oh. And I just felt like my insides were turned out. And I'm tearing up right now.
Yeah, it was. And I think for me, I mean, again, back then I was watching it regularly. I've been watching it over the last X number of years and whatever. And so, I was all invested. But here I am. I basically reinvested myself. And I had watched, the 37 episodes of The Good Fight before this, where he is name dropped more than a few times on that show.
He better have been.
Yeah, he keeps being mentioned. He's mentioned I think Alicia's been mentioned twice, and he's been mentioned like 20 times.
Yeah.
You know,
Her best friend.
Yeah, whatever. You never see those two hanging out. I'm just kidding. So, but watching, because this is episode, I watched 16 episodes in a row, and the night I was watching this, I think I watched 9 or 10 in a row, if I'm remembering correctly. I stayed up late to watch this one. I mean like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning late. Oh my God. And then I had to watch the next one because I remembered it, and I was like, oh.
Yeah.
And because I remember telling, because Juliana Margulies won the Emmy this year.
Yeah, deserved. Yeah.
Well deserved. Among other, you can pluck a number of moments in different episodes. The next episode, I think it's called The Last Call.
Yes.
It's like, there's your Emmy right there. Because it's just, because, it's just, it's so good.
It hurts. It hurts so good.
Now, I'm going to tell you something. We've never, if I should ever decide to do this idea for a one-off podcast, like the 10 most shocking deaths or something in TV history or something. And I know what some people are going to say, and I'm going to tell those people to shut up. Quiet. And I was like, at first I was like, hey, my podcast, shut up. And number 2, you're wrong. Shut up. Because they're going to go right to Game of Thrones and blah, 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 blah. It's like, here's why that wouldn't be number 1. Either the ones you're going to mention, no, wrong. Because number 1, a significant number of viewers knew that was coming already because they were already in the books. So a significant portion of your audience already knows it's coming.
And he dies in everything.
So and again, for anyone who didn't know that, of course, it's huge, but it does, that's a demerit. That's number 1.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, by the way, I'm about to talk about a few different TV shows, and so if you haven't watched, there may be spoilers here, so I apologize. And Game of Thrones was the one we're talking about right now. Even if you haven't watched it, you probably know all about that. There's 1 or 2 shows I'm tempted to mention, but one of them I'm afraid to mention because I know 2 friends of mine are watching it now, and I don't want to mention a certain death that happens a couple seasons later, so I'm debating.
If you name drop the show, but don't say who.
It's on a show known for. I'm just not going to talk. I'm just going to mention. I'm just
later.
Anyway, let me get back to what. Let me get back to my point here. Here's why, because I know the initial reaction from some people out there would be, "Oh, what about Ned Stark in Game of Thrones?"
Not shocking.
Okay, the thing that's shocking about Ned Stark being killed off is because he's set up initially. You feel like he's the main character of the series. So it's like, oh my God, they just killed off the main character. And if you didn't know it was coming. However, what I would say is why I don't think it comes close to the death of Will Gardner is, number 1, you're dealing with a show where people are being killed right and left all the time. So the show deals in death to begin with. Number 2, Ned Stark had been in a situation in the season where he had been held prisoner with imminent threat of death for the last at least 2 episodes, if not more than that. I can't remember exactly. So this was something he was already in this life or death situation for the last few episodes. So
you win or you die.
Yeah. So you have that. By the way, the same applies to the Red Wedding episode as well. Yeah. Same thing. And great episode. Who knows? We may be hearing more about that episode in a few weeks. But, did I just give something away? Oops. Anyway, but still not that one. You can go into TV history. You can say, well, I know there's the clear, you can go right to the iconic Henry Blake on MASH. That's a good one to use. I would even rank that higher than the Game of Thrones ones because it was a comedy series, so people really didn't see that one coming unless they were reading the newspapers and they were aware of the falling out that happened between McLean Stevenson and the people on the show and how he wanted to go off and do his own thing. And that was reported before that episode had aired. This show, however, I would point out MASH was still a show that took place during a war. People die. We just didn't expect it on a comedy series, but then again, MASH wasn't really just a comedy series. It was a comedy, drama, dramedy, whatever you want to call it. No one saw this coming.
No.
Number 1. Number 2, this is not a show that deals in death. There are lawyers. There are murder cases occasionally, not often, but occasionally. But we don't expect that here. And it was such a visceral kind of thing, you know. Oh, by the way, another one would be like Buffy, the body. That's another big one that people can point to.
Yeah.
But again, this one I rank higher because of the significance of the character. Mm-hmm. Will is basically your second lead. At this point on the show, I would have said he was the second lead on the show. I mean, she was the lead, then him, then Baranski, then the rest. You kind of trickle down as we go further down the list.
I'm not arguing.
He's definitely the male lead on the show, if nothing else. Not Peter, sorry. And to this day, I was like, I can't. It always shocks me to think how no one knew this was going to happen on a network show that figured, it's going to leak or whatever. It didn't, and it gave a season that was already incredibly intense. It suddenly gave this huge emotional resonance to, because that lasted significantly for the rest of the season, as well it should. So I think when we talk about the fifth season being so great, it's because, the first 2/3 are this crazy breakneck, plotting, scheming, escalating, whatever. And then you get hit with this emotional gut punch, which then lasts the rest of it. And then you throw in Lewis Canning.
Yes!
Yay! Yay!
I love that man.
A whole lot of Lewis Canning, not just a little. We'd only gotten a little before. No, we're going to get a whole lot. Not like that Good Fight episode. But anyway. I know his health, because he retired actually recently because his Parkinson's. Yeah, it's too much for him now. It's very sad to say. I'm just looking at my notes on all this. I'm gonna ignore them. By the way, forgot to did we forget and all the yapping about the actual episode we're supposed to be focusing on? The one thing I forgot to mention after all the back and forth. Oh, and we kept hinting at it, but we never actually said it. Oh yeah, Peter takes away her Supreme Court justice nomination. Because, you fire my wife like that, make her look like that. Yeah, you don't get to be Supreme Court justice. How do you not see this coming to the end?
Yeah, and Eli was not down with all of that.
Yeah, he wasn't. But, if Peter's shady, well, what's Eli?
So... Oh, God. But you have to love him. And
I love Eli. Don't get me wrong. And, wait till I talk about the Good Fight. Unlike someone on a certain spinoff that we'll be talking about momentarily, I suspect, Alan Cumming, who has an incredibly strong Irish brogue, or whatever you want to call how he speaks. He's Irish, not Scottish, right? He's Irish. Yeah. Does a pretty damn good job of suppressing it on The Good Wife, and coming up with a reasonably convincing American accent. It's not perfect, but it doesn't make me kind of like, what? Unlike someone else on another show. Someone from Game of Thrones and Downton.
Oh God, yeah. Oh,
awful.
But didn't you love her character?
Oh, she was horrible. Oh my God. Okay, we'll get, again, we're skipping ahead. But the lovely thing about watching the fifth season, and then just watching, in general, it's all this stuff is going on, and yet we're still throwing in all the characters that we love, the recurring characters. We're gonna get an Elsbeth Tassioni showing up, because she's always great. You're going to get Lamont Bishop showing up again. It's like, hey, he's Luke Cage. He was even better back then. All the other people. I mean, there's so many great little characters that populate this universe. And again, that is one of the things I think the Good Fight, it engenders goodwill by doing. Unfortunately, not will, but goodwill. By bringing back a lot of these, little supporting players, all their, I mean, I watched 37 episodes of The Good Fight, and I was amazed by the fact they were able to bring back so many of them. I mean, there's there's F. Murray Abraham, there's Rita Wilson, there's Mamie Gummer, a whole bunch of them. And the judges too. I love the wacky David O'Hare judge.
Yeah, I mean, they had to keep the same tone.
Yeah.
Same universe.
Yeah. I'll say same universe. Tone, well,
well, yeah, universe. Like, we're still here.
Yeah, we're still here. We're just in a show that's not as good. But if there's one thing I appreciate about getting ready to do this podcast is now watching all these episodes. It's like putting on, a comfortable pair of beloved, shoes, which I can't do right now because of my foot injury. And it's like, cause you're just like, this is nice. It's like a nice warm bath watching The Good Wife. It's such a good show.
Definitely.
And thank God, cause I made a mistake with my CBS All Access subscription because I was just doing the 30-day trial thing.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know why I did this. Oh, I know, because I'm an idiot. I picked the one with the commercial, the limited commercial thing, because if it ends up becoming a regular thing, then I'll only get charged $5.99 instead of $9.99.
Yeah.
It didn't occur to me. It's like, no, pick the other one because it's 30 days. Then worry about it after 30 days. Because, oh my God, the commercial breaks that went on forever during The Good Fight were driving me crazy.
All right. Scott, do you have Apple Plus?
No, I have nothing.
Okay, never mind.
I have an old TV and a PS3.
But Ted Lasso on Apple Plus is amazing.
I don't have Apple Plus. I'll tell you what. You cover my hospital bills. I'll go buy myself some Apple Plus. There you go. I can't afford no.
I got you.
Yeah, I'm keeping Showtime for an extra month for that Bryan Cranston show. I don't even know. Anyway.
Oh God, no, Scott. Oh my God. Yeah. That's what I was telling you. If you had Apple Plus, you could get Showtime for $9.99 and it comes with TBS. That's what I'm saying, but never mind.
Anyway. So let's since I've hinted at it a bunch of times, let me see where we are on the podcast. Oh, we've got time. Okay. So I feel we've talked about Hitting the Fan. Fantastic episode. Felt it didn't need to be recapped. We all watched it. It was more of a react than a recap because I didn't think I didn't feel like recapping that.
We didn't have to.
And I actually had it all written down here. I was like, skip all this crap. And one of the reasons I didn't want to recap it because I want to make a little time to talk about this Good Fight show. Okay. So I put on The Good Fight, right?
Mm-hmm.
And remember, unlike y'all, it's all going to be super fresh in my mind because I've watched all 37 episodes in the last week. So I remember it's all right here. There are things I like about it. Number one, I like returning to the Good Wife universe. And obviously there's a number of these characters I like seeing again. Obviously Diane, although I think she's better on the Good Wife. Anyway, the micro-dosing thing has just got stupid. I love seeing all these recurring characters that we'd seen before, whatever. Love that. I love the basic format of the show is similar to what the Good Wife's format was. Serialized plus procedural elements, etc. And I will continue watching it. I'm enjoying it. And, I would, if you're a Good Wife fan, yes, of course you should watch The Good Fight. I would be remiss if I didn't say that. But I have some problems with the show. And I'll tell you. And one I've already hinted at. That's the obvious one. One you might be surprised it bothers me. My first one is, okay, now this show is kind of done in a way where they're kind of trying to focus really on I would say the three main women of the show. You got Diane Lockhart, put her dead center, but you also got, of course, you've got Luca now, who was, I think she joined the show in the final season, The Good Wife. Was it Kush Jumbo? I think her name, Jumbo is her name. And then you got this other one,
Maya Rendell.
Maya, who's played by Rose
Leslie.
Leslie, right? And I was always a fan of Luca's character when she was on she was one of the things I liked about the final season of The Good Wife, despite the issues I might have had. Whatever.
Her and Jason.
I do not even remember. Saying names like I don't know Jason O'Mara, Jason Voorhees. I don't remember.
You remember Jason and Alicia's relationship? You hated him.
Are you talking about Jeffrey Lee?
Yes.
Whatever. No, I like him. It's just he's not well. That's all.
I know.
He's just doing his.
That made me sad.
He's
okay.
just. Same
page.
I just felt like he's basically a non-political version of the Gary Cole character that Diane was going up with. It's like they're like two peas in a pod. Those two guys. So anyway, come on, they are. He just dresses better. Anyway. So I don't have a big problem with Diane on the show, although whatever. There are certain points where I'm like, I don't know, this doesn't feel very Diane to me, or maybe it's just they got a little goofy or silly with it. I don't know.
Well, how much of Diane did we really get in The Good Wife? Yes, we got a good chunk of her, but remember, Alicia was front and center on that show.
I feel I got a lot of her on The Good Wife. We got a lot of stuff with her and her relationship and stuff with Gary Cole. I mean, she's a supporting player. I understand that. Yeah,
but not as much as we get here.
Well, I would think not, because she went from being a supporting player to a lead. I get that.
Exactly.
But it doesn't mean I have to suddenly like you less when you become the lead.
You like Diane less?
A little less. But that's
not true, because I liked Alicia less.
Yeah, well, there you go. But here's the thing. She's not the problem. She's not problem number one. What's her name? One you just said, Maya.
Maya. Oh, God.
Awful. Yeah. Awful.
So you didn't like the storyline, or you really didn't like the actress?
Well, first of all, the actress who just is always raspy because she's trying to hide her accent. And then, like, oh my God, shut up. I hate you already.
Like, just make her British, right?
Yeah. No, but even so, my issue is not because of her stupid fucking accent or
she's got it. Go ahead.
I don't care. I didn't like her character. I didn't buy her character. The storyline, the whole Bernie Madoff thing was like, yeah, okay, that's fine. I feel like I like that as a device for what happens to Diane and why she ends up having to do what she does.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Love that. And I love the show spinning off on a takeoff on a major scandal, just the way The Good Wife was.
Yes.
Love that. I love the parallel there. And the problem is they set that up that way because there's the fire engines. And The Good Wife, it's set up that way, and it makes it and set up clearly that Alicia is your main character who has to deal with all this and whatever. And they try to do that to a certain extent here in The Good Fight, even though you've set me up that Diana's the main character, but then you have this major thing happening, which is really more about Rose's character. And the problem is Rose's character is never really all that interesting. And I'm never convinced the way they handle her and her legal abilities, mm-hmm. I found very unbelievable. It seemed like she went from being, a bumbling moron for X number of episodes, and then all of a sudden I'm supposed to believe she's with someone. By the way, I never find her very good in Cort, period, even all the way up to the end. And then the whole storyline with her and the Michael Sheen character?
Yeah.
Made no sense. It made no sense at all. It's like, no, you wouldn't go along with this guy? Are you kidding me? And why would you align yourself with someone entering a firm with someone who's in the process of being disbarred? That makes no sense. What? I don't have enough scandal in my life. Let me hook up with this one. I hated that character. I didn't hate it so much where I had to fast forward her scenes. Yeah. I kept going, enough for her. And now I'm going to say something. Speaking of characters, and this is not going to win me any favor with anybody. I get there's a lot of love for the Sarah Steele character, Eli Gold's daughter, Marissa, on this show.
God.
I get there's a lot of love for her. I know I read, the thing that Alan Sepinwall just thinks they should just spin her off into her own The Good Detective show or something.
Universe continued.
Let me put it this way. A little of her goes a long way. And I get way too much of her at times. And I know, look, I'm the first one to say, when people are critiquing a show of like someone wouldn't do that or say that or whatever their silly criticism is, I'm like going, hey, to take it back a few steps, it's just a TV show, it's fiction, it's not reality. I know I say things like that. However, this is still a dramatic series, not a sitcom. She should not get away with half the things she says to people who are clearly in authority or clients or whatever. She should, and if they want to be even remotely professional, she would need to be disciplined a whole lot more often, and she doesn't. And it kind of, it goes from, and it's not like the things she says are funny all the time. Sometimes they are, sometimes whatever. Sometimes it's just like, oh, shut up. I don't hate her. It's not a hate kind of a thing, but like I said, because I loved her when she appeared again in the final season or so, or 2 seasons, whatever, because she showed up, I think, in the 6th season of The Good Wife. But I was going, oh, you know what? I'm getting a little bit too much of her. She just starts to bug me after a while. Sometimes I really like her, and sometimes it's like, oh, enough. And it's also, she kind of freaks me out. This is a totally personal thing, because every time I look at her, I still think she looks like she's a kid, and then I look up how old she actually is. She just turned like 32, and I'm like, 30, you're 32 and you look like you're going on 13. I mean, Grace looks older than you. It just kind of weirds me out, but that's not a factor into my opinion on her on the show, whatever. It just kind of freaked me out when I figured out she was 32. A little of her goes a long way, and so I'm like, enough for her. Oh. So as a problem on the show, oh gosh, I gotta spend time watching one character I don't like at all. One character I kind of like a little goes a long way. I really like Luca, but then they kind of put her, once they put her on the pregnancy train, I was kind of going, oh, really? Cause I keep thinking, so how much of the storylines are going to be about that now? Great. But again, I like enough of the other storylines and the procedural elements and whatever. I'll keep watching it. And now but there is one other thing that I have an issue with on the show. Mm-hmm. For the last 3.5, almost 4 years now, every day of all of our lives, at least here in this country, we are inundated with stuff about the person who is occupying the Oval Office in this country. Mm-hmm. Enough already. I don't need to have all of my entertainment be revolving around this as well. It was too much Trump stuff. I was like, oh, enough. And I'm not saying I'm not against them being anti. Of course not. I needed a break from it. It was too much. And I couldn't take the show as seriously as I wanted to. When they start getting into all the stuff like, the PP tape, I was like, really? Because I all of a sudden, like, at this point, like, I now, the closest the Good Wife got to being a little bit off the rails goofy, but it kind of righted itself at times, was when they would get into the stuff with the NSA and how they were being listened to, whatever, which they do on this show as well with the, whatever. But they figured out a way to work that out, and it actually was a nice little bow they tied on that in The Good Wife, at least. In this show, I was just like, it was too much. It's like everything was about. They pulled in too much
brain dead.
What?
They pull in too much brain dead for you?
Yeah, but brain dead sets it up to be about that to begin with. So going into that, oh, this is about Washington and Trump and Hillary.
They kind of pull that in too. Like when this show starts, when the good fight starts, it's Diane watching what she expects to be Hillary's victory party. It's not. So I had a feeling that it was going to get political. Granted, not as much as it has. So I would agree that as they continue, they need to find a balance. And honestly, now that a certain thing is almost over, thank God. Hopefully,
It can just stop. It can just stop.
Yeah.
And I would not, and by that has been mentioned to me. I was talking about this recently with someone else, and they thought they could like, we weren't, let me rephrase before I phrase, because we were not having an argument about it. We were just discussing it. And they pointed out how it starts off with her watching the thing. So, it's like, yeah, here's my problem and why that is not a defense of what the show did. Because they had actually filmed a scene of her watching Hillary winning, because they thought going into that season that Hillary Clinton was going to win the election. And then when she didn't, then they filmed that. Yeah. That tells me it was not your plan going into the creation of the good fight, that was what the show was going to be revolving around. So, sorry, not an excuse, not a defense of the excessiveness of it. I don't mind it here and there. Fine, sprinkle it here. It was too much. Just too much.
But like the fact that the show does it means it's in its DNA anyway. So
don't care. Too much. That's not an excuse. Not an excuse. That wouldn't hold up in a court of law. It wouldn't hold up in a court of Scot. No, even if your name is Cort, doesn't work. No. Again, like the Sarah Steele thing, little goes a long way. Or learn a lesson from what writers say. Less is more. You know what? You give me less of it, I probably would like it more.
Yeah, and like for me, I don't get caught up on like the political stuff that they show, and like I like again, like we talked about before, the relationships between the different characters and what's going on in court.
Yes, that's what I'm watching the show for. That's what I like. But the show was spending too much time with the other stuff, and it was just kind of frustrating me because it was going off into fantasy land. I was like, no, I don't. Please stop, because no, I'm not. I want to embrace this show. I really like it, but I want to love it. Yeah, like
I wonder what the show is going to be like now that Kush is gone, and so is Delroy Lindo, or he's leaving.
Oh, Delroy Lindo's leaving? Oh, that's too bad. He's one of the best things on the show.
He is. Like their introduction to the show, his and Audra McDonald, man, like that was one of the things that kept me in. That and Diane. I really enjoyed Diane and Kush. Like you said, Rose Leslie's character, she was the weakest link. And when she left, I didn't really miss that character.
Oh yeah, I was happy to see her go. And I love that they have Audra McDonald on the show. I remember once I realized she wasn't going to be added to the cast or on the or part of the show once I saw her start to show up, and I said to myself, how many episodes is it going to be before they come up with an excuse for her to sing? I'm just going to wait. I was waiting, and I'm waiting, and finally she did, because that's primarily what she's known for. She's a Broadway performer. She's a major talent, a huge voice, amazing singer. That's what she's known for more than acting, quite frankly.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Though she's fine on the show. I don't mean it as a knock on the show. I think she is one of the better parts of the show.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Like I feel like I've loved her in everything she's done. So, yeah,
I really get it. And I've seen her I've seen her on talk shows like on Colbert a million times. So it's like, but I've known who she is for a long, long time. Surprisingly enough, even if I've never actually seen her in person on stage.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I like the show. I don't love it. I want to love it because I love The Good Wife. It's not, and I don't.
I love it. I don't know how much of it is for me being a continuation of something else I loved, but I love it. And like the Marissa stuff, which I don't hate. I enjoy Marissa. I enjoy her byplay with what's his name? Oh gosh, what's the other? Jay. Like I enjoy their scenes together and him trying to reel her in.
Oh yeah, I like him.
Yeah.
No, I don't mind her. It's just
too much.
It's too much of her. And you know what? And you know what? You are trying to take his job. That is obnoxious.
It is.
He's a fucking saint for not being nastier to you because you're
annoying.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, getting all riled up again. Be like one of those contentious, meetings that they have on the show.
What's the hope of Alicia ever showing up? Is that like nil?
Oh, that's what I wanted to get to about that damn show. So apparently, originally, they were trying to get both Julietta Margulies and Alan Cumming, I think they wanted them both. I don't think they would be the same episodes necessarily, but they were going to try to get them both for at least 3 episodes in the 3rd season of the show, I believe it was. And it couldn't happen because of money.
Yeah.
They weren't going to pay them enough.
I think I remember that.
And hey, you know what? I got to side with both Margulies and plus I love that both of them, so it can't just be an anti-Juliana Margulies thing. Because I know if it was just her, that's how, just like the thing with her and Archie Punjabi about, how those 2 actresses don't get along, whatever the whole story was behind that. So automatically it has to be her. And maybe it is her. I have no idea. I don't know her. I don't know. And maybe she's a huge prima donna diva and horrible to work with. Maybe she's like the Dustin Hoffman of female actors. I don't know. Maybe she is.
I don't know what it can't just be that.
I don't know.
The last season of ER, which I just rewatched with the girls. So she was in several episodes with George.
Okay. I don't know. I didn't watch ER, so I don't know.
Oh, Scott, I forget that every time.
But if you're going to bring back those 2 people, hey, you know what? You got to pay them. You can't. They're not. It's not like bringing back any of the randomly recurring people who showed up before, especially her.
But Scott, you know what the problem is? They're on CBS All Access, so they're working on a much smaller budget.
Maybe you know what? Maybe do one less special effect for the next Star Trek show, and you can pony up for her. So.
Oh God, don't be a Star Trek hater.
I'm not a Star Trek hater, but I'm just saying. I'm making a point. It's like, if you want to get basically the big star from the show that this show wouldn't exist without, there's no Good Wife without Juliana Margulies. That's how that show that got on the air to begin with. You don't get her, then you don't have the show. Boom.
Agree.
So yeah, you're gonna have to pay her. And I'm going to go on a limb. I don't think she was asking for like millions to do a few episodes. I would be very surprised if it was something that crazy.
Yeah.
But you can't pay her the same thing you're paying like Rita Wilson to show up as a lawyer again.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
I hope they work something out.
I would, because it would just be, I'd like to see a continuation of the whole slap to her face thing, because after watching the finale again. Oh, by the way. Yeah. I just watched the finale again. I don't know what I said about it 4 years ago, but the problem was watching the 5th season and then skipping over to the finale.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, wait a minute. What's happening?
Oh, yeah. Because I'm realizing, wow, this show really isn't as good as it was in the 5th season.
Yeah.
But I mean, and it's actually to go along with what you said, it's probably a bad sign that the best things about that episode are the little weird fantasy moments with Will.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Josh Charles, so good on the show.
He was so good.
Oh man.
Let me get back to what Robert King. So with the finale, he said that they meant to leave it off that way for it to be bookended with the slaps and for her to have evolved into this different person. But when she walks away, you're supposed to be hopeful. So they had intended to have a scene with her ending up with Jason. But he says it's implied that they still end up together, that she starts to become like a not Peter clone.
Right. I thought the idea of her walking out on him to begin with kind of really tells me that.
Yeah, and like that was enough.
Yeah. And her mistaking someone else for him, that I feel like that's a running gag on the show constantly. Even though it's not really funny, so maybe gag's not the right word, but they do. I just watched, not 22, 23, 42. So I watched 25 episodes of that show, and and it happens at least 9 or 10 times. Alicia mistakes someone for someone else.
Yeah.
From behind, whatever. Like in that Colin Sweeney episode where she keeps seeing different people, whatever. We didn't even talk about him. Dylan Baker, another great thing.
There's a whole list. I found an article with 75 of the best guest stars. I'll send it to you. You would agree on all these.
I'm sure I would. Unless, the people I mentioned I don't like are on it. So, yeah. So it was a heck of a lot of fun rewatching all this stuff. Good wife, good show.
I'm going to say this one thing about that controversial scene between Juliana and Archie.
Oh, by the way, we are now way over the 90-minute mark. Just mentioning that.
Because that's what we do.
No, not usually on this series, but okay, go on.
So for those who don't remember, there was a final scene between Julia and Archie, even though they had not been in the room or seen together for like years. I was reading something that said 36 episodes.
Sure.
Okay. Remember, I don't know. But like everybody was really excited because finally you got these two people in a room together and they having a final conversation. It's a good way to sign off the show with all the other goodbyes. And then later we found out, no, they filmed those things separately. So the reason I bring this up is, hey, find out what they did so we can do it so that people can shoot shows safely in the age of COVID.
They're doing that on daytime soap operas now.
They are. They're making out with mannequins.
It's ridiculous. No, that just everyone quarantine and get tested. They're all okay. Then you can film stuff as you see fit. That's all.
Yeah, I'm down with that. And I don't figure out how to make things romantic without people making out. Like, did you see that one picture or video of the CW Riverdale actors just chugging Listerine? Like, what are you doing? Really? I don't need to see you guys making out that. Actually, I don't watch that show anymore. It's a bad show. Huh. But yeah, get creative, writers. Let's make this work somehow.
Or
actors too.
Just do what you're doing. Just be tested, make sure you're okay, and then you can. That's what all these other things we're watching are doing. They're this. I mean, This Is Us is actually you incorporating it into the storyline of the show, but then when all the actors are inside together, they're not wearing masks, and they are they're kissing each other or right next to each other. So
yeah, Grey's Anatomy is doing the same thing. I feel like they're doing a good job, but then you hear all these other stories of these productions just having to shut down because there's a positive test.
Well, tough shit, and be better at it then. Be best. Yeah.
Oh God! Stop it! What are we?
Oh God! The Melania episode was ridiculous. Oh God! It's too much.
It's all over, and then we get to see what they do when they can't rely on that.
Oh, maybe it'll be a better show. And then the animated things to explain things to me. It's like, what is it? Am I watching the Late Show with Stephen Colbert now? Because that's basically what you're doing.
Scott, you are so funny. You know you love this show. You kept watching it.
I kept watching it, hoping it would get better. No, I liked it. I liked it. Yeah. Again, I liked it, but I wanted to love it. That's my problem. And it's going to be more entertaining for me to talk about what I didn't like than what I did like. Because, the first hour and a half of this podcast was talking about how much of stuff I liked. It's like, no, I've got to talk about something I don't like. It's been a while since I got to rant about something. So there you go. And until I talk about the Queen's Gambit tomorrow night, spoiler. No, I'm just kidding.
Uh-oh.
I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. Anyway. So, someone's going to be happy. Oh my God. Just looked at the length of the podcast here. So, I am going to say we have tied a bow and then tied a few more bows on top of that bow, on top of The Good Wife, Hitting the Fan, The Good Wife, the 5th season, The Good Wife, the show overall, and The Good Fight. So you got more than you didn't pay for in this one. So let's take a look at this countdown right now. So now we have number 20 was House's Head. Number 19 was Dexter, which was the Getaway, the season 4 finale. Number 18, the one I do at you, Cort, was Firefly. It was Out of Gas. Number 17 was an episode of Mr. Robot, 407 Proxy Authentication Required. Such a good episode. Number 16 was Hannibal, Mixumono, which is the one I did with Dan and Mason Verger, I guess. And we just gave you number 15, which was A Good Wife, Hitting the Fan. So next, number 14 on the greatest TV drama episodes of all time. Wait, let me check my notes. Where am I? Number 14. Okay, here we go. Number 14 will be, come on, symbols, The X-Files. The episode will be Clyde Bruckman's Final Repose, 4th episode of season 3. Joining me on that podcast, well, believe it or not, I am actually going to let Dan back in on the podcast. But main reason why we're allowing Dan back, Colleen of the Jay and Jack Podcasting Empire is also going to be joining us for that podcast. So even if Dan falls asleep, Colleen will be starting to keep us all up, I'm sure. It'll be awesome, I'm sure. So that's it. So if you enjoyed this podcast, I guess you'd enjoy hanging out on our Facebook page, which is a Serious TV Drama Podcast page. Like the page, and you can join the conversation about any of these shows, plus anything else you want to talk about. And if you bring up anything I don't like, I'll just get rid of you. You can also track us down on Apple Podcasts, where you can subscribe to our feed and rate and review us there. You can find us on Stitcher.com. You know what? I'm not going to read the whole thing for Stitcher.com anymore. None of you are downloading it there anyway. Who cares? And more importantly, you can go to our host page, which is stvd.podbean.com, where you can find, oh God, what number podcast is this? This would be 289. All 289 of our podcasts can be found there. And finally, you can follow us on Twitter. Our handle there is at STVD Podcast. That's STVD as in Serious TV Drama Podcast. I should also mention that before you guys hear the number 14, the greatest TV drama episodes of all time, there will be a podcast before that. And you're thinking, wait, you finished Fargo already. What the hell else you got to talk about? What, you got to talk about Big Mouth or something? No, although that would be an amazing podcast, but unfortunately, that's not what it's going to be. I have, over the last few weeks, acquiesced. Ooh, not a good word for a person with a lisp. And finally, we're going to do The Crown again. So we're doing The Crown season 4. And by the way, yeah, we're probably going to talk a bit about seasons 2 and 3, just so it's officially on a podcast, even though I have done it before. And on the same podcast, because it seemed like such a nice combo in my mind, because of the Queenie kind of a thing, we're also going to be covering The Queen's Gambit. So yeah, the show that everybody's talking about 2 weeks ago. So we will be recording that over this weekend, and by we joined by a fellow named Kimber, who some of you might recall joined me on the Umbrella Academy podcast, as well as the original podcast we did about The Crown. How many years ago now? 3? I don't remember. Probably 3 years. Jesus. Yeah, we're going to be recording that this weekend because, COVID's keeping us all indoors anyway. And hopefully we can get that released to you guys either Monday or Tuesday, depending on my laziness. Cort, I forget at this point, do you have anything you promote, or is it beyond the Geek Girl stuff, or, well?
Yeah, it's the Geek Girl Soup things. We still are doing our weekly podcast, and with the stand on CBS All Access coming, I'm going to be doing more Brad and Cort talk. We're supposed to be covering that. It's going to be week to week. Ooh. So that's for pure fandom. Nice. Yeah. That is actually one of the reasons I was willing to get the CBS All Access, because of the upcoming Stand miniseries. Yeah. Because rumor has it, the unabridged version of The Stand is my favorite Stephen King book. Yeah. And that's a book I've read multiple times. And if you've read the unabridged one, if I'm not mistaken, it's over 1,000 pages. So maybe I'll try to go back and read that one before the school year. That's a heavy reread. Hey, I can do it. I have time, dude. I'm sure you do. You youngins, you do whatever you want. Me and these elderly eyes, I can't do it anymore. I haven't read a book since the 90s. Well, anyway. I sometimes cheat, and I might let Alexa read it to me. Oh, shit. God. Don't they have audio? I forgot to say, and I thought she was going to start reading. Go ahead. Oh, that would have been so great. Yeah. Anyway. Well, Cort, thank you so much for joining me to talk about The Good Wife, and I guess The Good Fight, too, to whatever extent I let you talk about it. You did good. It's fine. I know I did good. I did good letting me interject. I tried a little bit. Yeah. If we had recorded it last night when you were still ailing from your illness, you would have been able to talk even less, and it would have been, yeah, you would have had the whole show to yourself, and I would have been just out. Oh, if I could ever figure out a way to record these things without a co-host, without having to be a call, guess what? Just bouncing things off of yourself. Like, what do you think, Scott? Well, I think this. Oh. Yeah. Have you not met the Mason Verger character?
Where have you been? Oh, he's showing up on every podcast now. First, he showed up on Fargo for 2 seconds.
Welcome.
Anyway, he wants his own podcast. That's what he wants. That would be the most amazing podcast ever. It really would.
That would be interesting for sure. You should do it.
The sad thing is, I am thinking about it. If I could just release a separate feed, just
do it and see if anybody picks up on it.
On the verge.
Do it.
Lord. Anyway, like a verger. Anyway, so anyway, wow. Well, up until now, these were all in the 90-minute zone. That's all I'm going to say. All right. So, Cort, again, thank you so much for joining the podcast to talk about The Good Wife. I believe we will be seeing you again in a few weeks. I won't say what show we're going to be talking about, but you've already signed up for at least one other one. Mm-hmm. And so I look forward to that. That will be this year, not next year. So that's cool. So I won't wish you a happy holiday now, because by the time I record that one, it'll be closer, I think. Well, yeah. Right.
Okay.
Ooh, that'll be, if I'm not mistaken, I want to delay this podcast for one more minute. Give me 1 second. I'm curious now. Am I right about that? Let me get to the schedule. All right. That's not going to be long. Oh, I am wrong. I am stupid. Never mind. I do have to wish you a happy holiday now. The one that you're going to appear on it'll still be a nice little. It'll either be the first podcast released in 2021 or the second podcast. It depends when we do a best of 2020 podcast.
Okay. So will you sing Auld Lang Syne with me?
No.
No? Fine. I'll hum it and you won't know.
I'll do a Johnny Cash take on it. That'll be cool.
All right.
Anyway, so thank you so much for joining the podcast. I hope you guys out there enjoyed it. If you were able to stick around this long, and because I forget how I used to like to end these podcasts, I just say, Cort, if you would like to have the last word, and then you can say goodnight.
Night, y'all.